and welcome to Diabetes Deep Dives. My name is Candice, and I'm from Diabetes Canada. If you are new to our video series, thank you for joining us. If you have been enjoying this series, welcome back. Our Diabetes Deep Dives video series is designed to go beyond the surface of general diabetes education. We hope to spark continued interest and learning and leave you with practical tips and tools that you can easily use. We drop a new video every month, so subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the notification bell to be notified about new content. You can also check us out on social media to find out when the next one will be posted on our YouTube channel. Thanks to those who have subscribed and supported our video series. I'm so excited to share with you this new episode featuring the lived experiences of people affected by diabetes. In today's episode on managing diabetes in the school setting, you will meet two parents who will provide a small but impactful glimpse into their experience supporting their children as they re-entered school after being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. They will share some details about their child's diagnosis story to set the stage, as well as what they learned as they supported their child with going to school. We hope after watching this video that you will gain a greater understanding of how families are impacted by a diabetes diagnosis, as well as the process of working with partners, including schools, to support children living with diabetes. We also want to let you know that the story shared by our parents may be difficult to hear and may trigger some intense emotions. We encourage you to seek support and/or stop the video if you find yourself reacting to the content in a distressing way. We recognize that the content in this video may not be relevant for everyone and will depend on what your experience with diabetes is, as well as what devices are available to you where you live. If you have specific questions about diabetes management, please reach out to your healthcare team. These videos are for educational purposes only. The content discussed in this video is not intended to be medical advice, and to the extent that medical advice is required, you should consult with a qualified medical professional. The information discussed in this video cannot replace consultations with a qualified healthcare professional to meet your individual medical needs. The views and opinions expressed in this video are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Diabetes Canada. As always, we hope that this video sparks your interest in learning more about diabetes management. And now over to our guest speakers, Krista and Sylvia.
Me and my family, we came 2018 to Canada, and for 6 years I was trying to avoid going to emergency rooms because before we immigrate to Canada, we've heard a lot of terrifying stories about the emergency rooms in North America, how you can spend like 7 or 8 hours or even more. So I'm a nurse. I think that's important to share. I'm a nurse back home, and I was very prepared when we decided to move to Canada. I took everything I can take so I can check my kids and deal with everything by myself. But the other thing, since I have kids and I have this knowledge, I have two big fears: anaphylaxis and DKA. So that's why probably I caught my son immediately at the very beginning. And this happened last year in October. It was Saturday morning, we had breakfast, and my son asked me for water. And I realized that the whole week, this guy was asking me for water. My kids don't ask for water here because I'm that parent who ask them to drink water all the time, drink water, and they never been thirsty. But when he asked me again on Saturday, I had this flashback. For the previous whole week, he was asking for water. I need water when we outside, when we're at home. And I was like, buddy, let's check your blood sugar. I have glucometer. I check my kids' blood sugar, let's say 3 times per year, randomly, because that's huge fear for me. And I checked, it was 24. The nurse in me knew immediately But the mom in me was like, no way, like this is not happening to this guy. It's very strange moment. You know it's true, but at the same time, you cannot believe it. And I changed the lancet and I checked my blood sugar because I thought this glucometer is not right. But it was. And it was Saturday morning. He's very happy, active, the same, nothing. He doesn't feel bad. He's not in discomfort, anything. He's the same boy. And I was like, okay, I didn't know how the things work in Canada. Back home, you go to your family physician. He immediately prescribes you the medication you need and refers you to endocrinologist like immediately, not after months or days. And I thought it's the same. And I said to my husband, it's Saturday, let's wait for Monday. I will call our family physician and we will go from there. But he was worried, and we have this option for FaceTiming with nurse practitioners from his work. We have this, which is awesome. And I said, okay, let's call nurse practitioner and we will go and enjoy the weekend. When the guy heard the number, he said, take your son immediately to the emergency room. And I said, but he's fine. In emergency rooms, maybe we will stay for 8 hours for my son. Not only for my son, I assume for every 7 years old kid. It's a torture. And with this blood sugar, his immune system is not good. Staying there for 7, 8 hours in this room with people sneezing, coughing in October, I was like, can we avoid that? And the guy was, the second they hear that number, they're gonna admit you immediately. And I was, okay, I'm going. No, we stay for a terrible 7 hours in the emergency room with people with fever. And he became so nervous and so irritated. And he's such a sweet and calm and relaxed guy. And the worst part was I was asking 3, 4 times the staff, tell me what is going on. Tell me how much we're gonna wait. And they're like, everyone is doing their best. I know. I don't blame anyone. I know people are working hard, but I need to know whether I will wait like 2 hours or 5 hours or 7 hours. No one's saying anything. And we're staying there. So, yeah, they admitted us and the diagnosis was there, which was not surprise at that point for me. I was sure it's this, it can be. And our adventure start.
My youngest son was diagnosed last year in March 2022. I had noticed earlier in the year when he was about 7 years old that something was going on with him. He hadn't been feeling well in general. He was losing weight. He was not as active and full of energy as he usually was. Then my oldest son got COVID. And while we tried to isolate at home, inevitably, my youngest and I got it as well. It was relatively mild at first, but then my youngest got really sick. He wasn't getting better. He was vomiting and tired and thirsty. And I'm never one to rush to the hospital right away. I try to focus on fluids and rest, but with no improvement, I had to take him to the emergency department. He was taken in right away, as he was in rough shape at this time. And I'm so thankful that the doctors seemed to recognize the signs and symptoms. He moved directly past the COVID into testing, and shortly after confirmed a type 1 diabetes diagnosis. Looking back, his diagnosis makes sense now with his symptoms, but until you actually hear from the doctor, he has diabetes, you just don't put it together. I remember saying out loud, I didn't know. And the nurse immediately gave me a hug. I've heard since that that's how a lot of parents find out in the emergency department. I was devastated. I was overwhelmed, and honestly, I felt defeated. 8 months earlier, my wonderful husband died in a very tragic car accident that we were both in. So my 2 boys and I were as a family going through intense grieving process. So once again, I'd say I went through the same types of questions I'd been through before. Why us? Why now? How am I going to figure this out and take care of my boys? I learned very quickly how intense a diagnosis of T1D is. It is all consuming from day one. We stayed in pediatrics for 2 nights. As they gave him insulin, things got more settled. We were immediately connected to the Charles H. Best Center, an amazing not-for-profit organization in Durham region dedicated to T1D and supporting patients and families. I am so thankful for the Best Center. Especially being a solo parent now, it was my life support for T1D at the time. I relied on them so much, the doctors, nurses, dietitians, especially as he had some sick days early on. I trusted they would help me keep him safe. Remember, we both had COVID, so we were in isolation, so we did a lot of our education over Zoom. I learned how to use the devices with a nurse at the hospital, a nurse at Zoom. It was crazy. There was not a lot of sleep in those early days. I received supplies from the Best Center initially, and we were sent home to continue our education and live day to day with the diagnosis. My son had missed a few days of school. He went back after March break. The Best Center hosted an online education session with a few key people at his school, the teacher, gym teacher, principal, VP, and provided resources and details about T1D. So then I worked with his teacher to make a plan for my son to get back to class safely. Family was a definite support to me. I have some family close by and some family further away, but just to talk, listen, support me when I needed help, needed a break, needed some time away, and just to support my son as well. Someone for him to talk to, just share his new story, the new requirements. It was just helpful to really have family around and others to just talk to about this. A lot of people said, hasn't this family been through enough? But we had showed them that, we could figure things out. So with their help, it was doable. I'll never forget my son's teacher. I messaged him from the hospital about the diagnosis, and right away he said, well, it takes a village to raise a child, and consider me part of that village. And I'll never forget that. I needed that.
My personality is like this. I don't overthink when the problem is there. And I would say I'm a fighter. So I'm not like, I know this moment is very, has very huge mental impact on people, but my thinking is, okay, the problem is there, how to solve it. The second the pediatrician came and said, your son has type 1, I said, did you run all the tests? Are you sure? And she said 100%. And that was it for me. From that point, I start thinking, what can I do? But it's not a common experience, and it's not fair, I think, toward other families, because I knew what type 1 is. I had a very good knowledge of type 1. Some people, and as we say, type 1 doesn't discriminate. It's not necessary for you to know what insulin is or what pancreas is. And I cannot imagine parent receiving this. Your son has type 1. What is this? I've heard about pancreas, but what exactly this is? For these families, I feel very, very bad. And I cannot imagine how hard it is, like mentally and physically. And I educate myself, even people with the medical background, when they face this type of diabetes in their life, they have to continue learning about it. Because it's one thing learning about this in school from the books, one thing to live with it. And it's very different experience for every family. Diabetes is not one size fits everyone. I remember it's very hard to make me cry. I don't know why, it's me. But I remember I cried a lot. I picked up the prescription. It was a big bag with insulin, with Baqsimi glucagon, with everything. And I went in my bathroom. I look at these medications, and I just start crying because I realize, what if this guy, when he grows, now we good. I'm so happy we good. We have a nice insurance, very good. Everything is good now at that point. But what if this guy, when he grows up, he doesn't have a nice insurance? He struggled to have this. He has to have this to live. He has to have insulin. He has to have the glucose monitor system to have a good management. What if that's when it hits me? I cried, I grieved, and that was all. Because diabetes is like life, to be honest. You never know. You take day by day. It's hard. It's a challenge. You cannot do anything except do your best. And we decide, well, I will finish college here while my son is at home. And when he starts JK, I will go and find something. And everything was according to plan. I start working part-time. After that, I start full-time. Everything is perfect. And when this happened, my son is, he was 7. He was in grade 2 in October. Now he's 8 and he's gonna be grade 3 in September. My reaction was like, what we gonna do? I'm working full-time. My husband is working full-time at home. We live very close to the school. And he said at the beginning, I can go during the 2 nutritional break. I can go and administer insulin and check on him. But how long this gonna continue? I found out then that there is no full-time nurse in the Canadian school. But our nurse told us, you know what, there is an option. I can connect you with the agency, nurse agency, and they can send nurse during the 2 nutritional break to administer the insulin according to the doses from the pediatrician. We spoke with the agency. They said there is a shortage of nurses. That was October. There is a shortage of nurses. I don't know how long this will take for the nurse to be available for you, but you have to know, if there is a shortage in the future, even if you have a nurse, at some point they will not be able to come, or if she is sick and they cannot find replacement. So we said, okay, let's see. And I was working, and in December, before Christmas break, they contact us. They said there is a nurse. She will come during the nutritional breaks to administer insulin, and after that, she's gone. That's it. Only for the insulin. But I already had 2 months experience. And my son still, thank God. I know some people don't like honeymooning period. I love it. This is the period in which their pancreas still producing some insulin, and it's very unpredictable. And I saw, if the nurse is coming, administer the insulin according to the insulin to carb ratio, and he go hypoglycemic, where is the nurse? We have approximately 600 kids in our school. Situation happens. You don't have a nurse. So that was very surprising to us. And after all, me and my husband decide that I have to stay at home and manage my son blood glucose levels. I never thought, it never crossed my mind, because we never needed for anything. And I'm very, very grateful, because our school is amazing. We have amazing support from our office staff, from the principal, from the teachers. Our experience is super positive, but they work with me. I'm available. He doesn't feel good, I'm right there within a minute. I watch his Dexcom. I follow the Dexcom. The second I see he's going down, I call them, they react. But this is working super great because I'm available. And this kid, because of that, my son doesn't have any negative experience. And that is my goal. Because he's gonna live with this forever. I want him at least to have a nice and carefree childhood.
I wish I had known and truly believed that it is possible to incorporate diabetes management into our everyday lives, including at school. I heard this from people, but I didn't really understand how that could be true. I didn't see it when I joined online communities or spoke to other parents. It all seemed like a lot of conversations of overwhelm and stress, the constant rhythm of blood glucose graphs and alarms. And considering my son was in grade 3, I just didn't understand how I could manage the demands of this condition and live our lives without this taking over. And I have 2 boys. So I wanted to be present. We focused on both of them. So I had learned through our tragedy, we could do hard things. So I guess I just decided that things were now going to be even harder and needed to figure that out. So pray for strength and keep going. It's what I do. I was fortunate that my son's school administration and teaching staff were so supportive of my family and wanted to do anything they could to have my son back in class. He's amazing, social, athletic student. So we really wanted him to see him thrive and be back with his friends. And he was feeling and looking so much healthier and active and back to my fun, energetic 8-year-old. It's so important to partner in your child's care together with the school. And as a parent, to really be a driver of setting them up for success. You're both still learning, but there are key ways to get ready. The first is open communication is a priority. You have to discuss with the teacher the easiest way to get in touch with you, what requires a check-in, when snacks and juice need to be restocked, and so much more. My son's teacher actually spoke to his class about T1D before my son returned. So they were aware of what he had, what he was dealing with and how they could support him when he returned. Our principal, through a colleague, found out that our school board has a care plan document for T1D. So we used that and completed it to outline his diabetes management at school. Next, preparing for lunch and snacks is really important. In absence of a nurse coming to school, we didn't have a nurse. There's a shortage. So I started going into the school every day to administer insulin for a few minutes before lunch. It is not practical when you're working. I had a bit of flexibility at the time. Fortunately, my son felt comfortable giving himself injections within a few months after his diagnosis, and that was a game changer. I give him carbs in the same range every lunch. So he views his chart with his carb range, his blood glucose, and administers what he needs. So again, I'd set up a process with the school where they could have an adult supervise him and they would text me the dose and I would just know it was done. More recently, he has a nurse now come to the school, and they often let me know how empowered and knowledgeable my son is about his condition, which makes me so proud. You also need to ensure office and classroom have stocked emergency kits, and extra snacks, and also the clear process of who's going to take those when they have fire drills or school trips. How is that all going to work? There's going to be kinks to work out as you're learning, but with good communication and staff like I have at this school that go beyond going through the motions and genuinely caring about my child, we're such a good team supporting my son together. I really felt it was important to prioritize his sense of belonging in the classroom. You can ask teachers to give you a heads up if there's special snacks, parties, activities, and sports at school. You can, as a parent, make a choice. If you want to participate, if you want them to have the snack, participate in the sports, you can make it happen. It just takes some planning. And then finally, remember your child is at the center of all this initial swirl. While we all work to monitor blood sugars, ensure he's cared for, we need to remember he's so much more than this condition. The first questions at the end of the school day, they need to be about the silly thing you did at recess, the new sport he learned in gym. It's got to be about the kids stuff, and then the diabetes stuff. I'd say my best piece of advice for parents is beware of analysis paralysis. That term, the more information and data you have, It can sometimes lead to questioning what to do, or even worse, sort of doing nothing at all. T1D is overwhelming. There's so much information out there, and you have so many data points of blood glucose sugars taken every few minutes you can obsess over and react to. So if you've educated yourself, if you're learning about how activity and food affect your child, you've prepared key people to support them, their blood sugars are in target range, you don't necessarily need to keep seeking out new ways of doing things every day. Be compassionate with yourself, be patient, trust the process and education that you've been given. Obsessing over the numbers can really lead to lack of sleep, over-treating, and just a general sense that our lives revolve around diabetes instead of we take it with us as we go about our life. So I really can align it with grief and sadness. I take that with me every day, and yet I'm living my life with my boys the best I can right now. My focus on day one was for my son and I to be in this together. He learned everything along with me, counting carbs, insulin delivery, advocating for himself, how activity affects him. I want him to be comfortable understanding his condition and not have complete reliance that mommy will do everything. I often ask him, how many carbs do you think that is at restaurants? Ask him how much insulin he should be getting, what we could do next if his blood sugar is low or high. They're great teaching moments to empower your child. And finally, for your child's well-being, it's really important to model as a parent what calmly going about diabetes management looks like. So they're confident you can take care of them and that you know how to respond. That's really the key, knowing how to respond to highs, lows, sick days, unexpected events. They are going to happen. Your child will be looking to you and will start to model how you present yourself. The language you use is important. It's not about good or bad numbers. It's not about blame and looking back. It's really about responding and moving forward with your child, especially in dealing with whatever you face and learning as you go together. There are times, of course, when I am just done. I'm tired of injections, tired of alarms. So I need to take a deep breath or a break and then focus again on what matters, that he is healthy and safe. And that's what matters most.
So we are now almost a year into this, in like 10 months. Yeah, 10 months into this. And I think it's very important for parents at the very beginning when they're receiving this diagnosis, grieve, cry, be mad, be sad, but just do it at the beginning and move on. Don't keep it. Don't try to be strong. Don't grieve. Accept it. Go to the grieving. Do this at the beginning, because if you don't do it, it will come later for sure, 100%. And after that, focus on educating yourself. Start reading books. There are amazing books out there. It's not necessary for them to be a medical professional. There are amazing books out there. Can I share amazing podcast like this? For me, was life changer, game changer. If you want to have a great management, if you want to have the understanding of the real life management of type 1, go and listen to the Juice Box podcast. This I did. I was listening like crazy at the beginning to wrap my mind, because you have your team behind you, but you gonna be the best endocrinologist in your kid management. People with the best knowledge of this disease are people that are living it. They have Facebook group. This Facebook group, it's not only great resource of information, like real life information, but also you can vent. You can share your victories. You can share your sadness. You can share your struggle. They gonna support you. And this is huge, because some people they feel very depressed and they struggle when they receive this, and this is so normal. You cannot wait months to see some therapist. After months you're gonna be a pro. Of course you will need therapists during the way, but it's different. At the beginning you need the help right away. You need to see that someone is dealing with this. You need someone to give you real life advice how to deal with this. You need to see someone that you're not crazy, that you're not failure. You receive type 1 diagnosis for your kid. Every healthcare professional start telling you, oh, it's okay. He can eat whatever. He can eat everything he wants. Just count the carbs, dose insulin, go. And you go back home with this insulin, which is amazing help, but also is very dangerous thing. And you don't have medical background. And as I always like to share this example, some kids like to start their day with cereal. Only people that live with type 1 knows how tricky it is to dose for cereal. And imagine this mom, super stressed, or dad, or wherever caregiver. The doctor told me he can eat whatever, I just count the carbs and I dose insulin. And they eat cereal, the caregiver dose insulin, and everything goes in a very wrong direction. How the caregiver feels? Like a failure. So I really wish people to stop telling caregivers of newly diagnosed, let them be kids, let them eat whatever. Yes, you can do that. You need time, you need knowledge. So that's why my huge and very friendly advice to caregivers: educate yourself, read books, listen to the podcast. I'm telling you, this will give you the whole knowledge, and you can do it. Slowly, you will do it. And automatically, mentally, you're gonna be okay. For the school, the other motto I have, and my son has now also, always be prepared. Nothing is scary when you are prepared. Always be prepared. Hypos happens. Hyperglycemia happens. Be prepared. What I did, I can share what I did with my school, and I really hope all the parents have this support from their school. After the diagnosis, I immediately called the principal. She was amazing. She was like so supportive, and she said, you know, it's very hard to have all the staff together at the same time so we can have a meeting with you, but I will do my best. And she did it. All the teachers were there, the admin staff, and we sit in a room. My son was with us, and I start educating them. They were so supportive, but also I can see how stressed they are. The second I start sharing what can happen if he's hypo, and I saw, you know, they were genuinely very worried, and that's okay. But I said, and they were so relaxed when I said, we will be there. My husband or me, you can rely on us all the time. We're gonna follow his Dexcom and we're gonna work together. But they were, and after that, with the office staff, with the office admin, which are who are great also, we start writing medical care plan. And we decide every September we will change the medical care plan as needed if the changes are there. And the other thing I very much appreciate, I told them, don't treat my son differently. If you have to push him hard through something, push him. Don't feel sorry about him. And they doing it. And I love this. People need to be educated more. in school and everywhere. People have to hear more about type 1. Honestly, organizations like Diabetes Canada, they play a huge role in educating people and raising awareness.
Thank you so much for joining us for this very important topic. And thank you to Sylvia and Krista for sharing their stories and shining a light on the experience of raising a child with diabetes. Again, this topic may not be relevant to everyone living with diabetes, but we do hope that you found it interesting and learned something new. Please take the opportunity to keep the conversation going by posting a comment in the comment section on YouTube. You can provide us feedback about the video by clicking on the link to the feedback survey in the description box. If you have ideas for other topics you'd like to learn more about, you can include that in the comments or feedback survey as well. For more information about diabetes management, please visit our website at diabetes.ca. You can also email us at info@diabetes.ca or call our info line at 1-800-BANTING. That's 1-800-226-8464 and speak to one of our information and support specialists who can address your needs. Thanks again for joining us and see you next time.